So let's face it, since technology has gotten better and better, recording studios have decreased. They're closing. Let's talk about it. What up guys, welcome back to the channel. Make sure you subscribe, and if you got something to say in the comments after you watch the video, do that as well. But for right now, let's dive right into the topic that we are talking about. Recording studios. Why are these recording studios closing? Now, I've been in the music scene, I guess, for a long time, long time, probably about 20 years ago, on and off. And at the time, a long time ago, I had a recording studio. I had to rent it out of my house because then at that particular time, early in my 20s, if you wanted to start a recording studio, you would lease a space. But if there was one studio in that particular office complex or whatever, they were not going to allow another recording studio in there. I don't care if it was just a little one room setup. That's how plentiful recording studios were and how hard it was to actually find space. So eventually what I had to do was open up the recording studio in my home. That was a bad idea. But let's fast forward. Even way back then, I could start to see that what was going to happen down the line. It was very easy to see because at one point, people would come into the studio and they would be like, wow, he got a lot of stuff. You know, we had Pro Tools. Back then, there was, you had a lot of hardware. We had keyboards. There weren't really many controllers available. You had full-blown Korg Trinities, Korg Tritons, Korg M1s. You had actual keyboards stacked up to the, you had drum machines. You had the Roland, the 808 machines. You had the ASR 10. You had actual instruments. So if you go into a recording studio, people wanted to see that because that meant that you were for real. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody couldn't afford that stuff. You couldn't do it at home, quote unquote. You had to be someone that was making money in it or wanted to make money in it to own that type of equipment. Then all of a sudden you start to see, I remember clients would come in, they may would bring a friend or whatnot. They would see a drum machine and they would say, man, I got one just like that. Because, you know, if the hottest thing came out, then you would want it too, especially if you just wanted to try it out. But you start seeing more and more people really just coming with their homeboys to record or whatever, just to see what you had. And eventually the story was, hey, man, I got that. And they would look at something like if you had a piece of equipment, the same thing that they had, that meant, why am I paying you? That was the start. It was at that moment I knew that we were facing a time where the clock is ticking, the clock is ticking. When people felt like that they could start doing this themselves, that's when the clock started ticking. Now, right along the same time, you had MP3s start to come into play. That hurt stuff too. It really did, because people stopped caring as much about the quality for what they were getting. Way back when I started, quality was grade A. You know what I'm saying? People wanted to make sure that whatever you were recording on, it was going to create a great sound. There was no compression other than compressing it to a format to put it on CD. When a person came in your studio, they left with a CD, not an MP3 file. That's really the point that I'm getting at. So fast forward a little more, and I remember when VSTs came into play, or better yet, when Cakewalk. Some of you probably don't even remember Cakewalk, but to put it in perspective, BandLab is the current iteration of Cakewalk. Way back in the day, Cakewalk was used as kind of like a MIDI recorder. You still had your keyboards on the outside, but you ran it into the computer through a little MIDI box. People don't even use MIDI boxes no more. They just connect directly to a USB. But anyway, you ran it through the computer and you record all of your MIDI through there, and then eventually you could track each sound out from your keyboard individually or just dump a stereo file into Cakewalk. So as this came into play, things started to get a little bit more easier for people to make beats. And then when the MIDI controller came and VST instruments came, man, you start to see a huge decrease in recording studios. It was harder to get clients. I remember back, I got most of my customers, there was a newspaper called Dallas Observer. All I would do is pay $20 a week and place an ad in the back of that music section. And you would have like a lot of recording studios. Eventually, that list started getting smaller and smaller and smaller to where there was only a handful. And that were the larger commercial ones. So at that point, you know, clients started to drop off. There was incidents about stuff happening, you know, stuff coming up missing. So I had to cut that out. Stopped doing any music for a long time. And recently, just kind of started back doing it just for fun now. And it's a whole lot more fun when you're just doing it for fun. So now, just think back then, there was this time where you could already see a change happening. And nowadays, you literally can do everything. At least back then, you could still kind of tell a quality difference from someone recording something at home versus someone recording something that has a more expensive equipment, better mixers. Because you had mixers, you didn't have MIDI controller you didn't have controllers, period. You have Tascam mixer, Yamaha Roland mixers, everything's running into that and then running to the computer. But I digress again. Now everything is in the box. You can do full beats. You can do record music on your phone, and the quality is not that important. It's not that important because no one is listening to stuff that is really of great quality to begin with, as far as a medium for which music is enjoyed on. So long story short, this is one of the reasons I'm surprised there are still any recording studios around. Even when you look at the big artists, everybody has a recording studio in their home. At one point, the advance went to recording your actual music because you had to take that advance, use that advance, record the music, use for your videos and whatnot. Nowadays, then it got to the point where artists were taking that advance, instead of using it to go record an album, they would use it to build their own studio. And now they can get advances from here on out and save that money. And then you got 360 deals and all of that. So just with the iteration or the evolution of technology is really driving, still to this day, musicians, recording studios out of business. Now we got AI involved. That's a whole nother topic. But for the same technology that drove studios to close, it will be the same technologies that hurt the music industry even more. Why would you even need a recording artist when I can use AI to make an artist sound like Drake, or make an artist sound like Michael Jackson or Whitney Houston or Mariah Carey? Why would you need to pay someone to do that when you can have a laptop and within 5 minutes have a hit song? That's kind of where we're going to. Technology is really just going to put eventually everyone out of business, except the ones in control of the flow of money. Y'all let me know what you think about this video in the comments, and what you think the reason why these studios are closing still to this day. This your boy. Peace.